In the tranquil village of Alembe, the stars gleamed brightly above the earth the night Nia went into labor. Her cries echoed through the peaceful stillness, summoning the village's midwife to her humble mud hut. The midwife, known for her skill in bringing babies into the world, hurried to Nia's side, expecting another usual delivery. But when the baby was born, a heavy silence filled the room. The midwife, who had assisted in countless births, paused, gazing down at the child she held. This baby was like none she had ever seen. The newborn possessed both male and female parts. The child's face, radiant like the morning sun, glowed with a mysterious light, and her skin, soft as silk, shimmered in the dim light. The midwife quickly wrapped the baby, ensuring her warmth before any curious villagers began to arrive. To the outside world, the baby seemed like a perfect girl, but the secret of her body was known only to Nia and the midwife. Exhausted, but filled with love, Nia reached out, eager to hold her child. The midwife gently placed the newborn in Nia's arms, her voice low and filled with caution. "This one is unlike any other, Nia," the midwife whispered. "The gods have given you something special, but you must not tell anyone, not the villagers. They would not understand." Fear and confusion gripped Nia's heart as she gazed down at her daughter's innocent face. "What should I do?" she asked in a trembling voice. The midwife's eyes softened with empathy. "Raise her as a girl. Keep her secret, for the world will only fear what it does not know." As Nia nodded, the weight of her decision settled heavily on her chest. She knew the dangers of revealing the truth. In the village, there were many stories about people who had been shunned or cursed for being different. She could not allow her child to face such a fate. Looking down at the newborn, Nia whispered softly, "You are mine, and I will protect you, Amina." The name Amina, meaning trustworthy in their language, felt perfect. It was a prayer, a hope that the gods who had saved Nia's life would protect her child in this world that had little tolerance for those who strayed from the norm. At that moment, as Amina's eyes fluttered open, Nia's heart filled with a fierce, protective love. No matter the challenges ahead, she would shield Amina with everything in her being. From that night, Nia vowed to raise her child as a girl, keeping the secret of Amina's unique body hidden. The child would live a life of secrets, but Nia would ensure her daughter knew only love and safety. Before Amina's birth, Nia's life had already been marred by loss. Her husband Kwame, a strong and kind man known throughout Alembe for his wisdom and strength, had been her joy. Together they had dreamed of a life filled with love and family. But those dreams were shattered when sickness took Kwame one cold morning, leaving Nia a widow before she even knew she was pregnant. The village buzzed with whispers. The young widow, seen moving through the village with a lowered head, was always surrounded by concerned villagers. The women of Alembe rallied around Nia, bringing food and offering companionship, but nothing could fill the emptiness left by Kwame's death. When Nia discovered she was carrying Kwame's child, her heart both soared with joy and sank with fear. She clung to the memory of her husband, praying that the child would bring a piece of him back into her life. But despite the villagers' kindness, their eyes were always filled with curiosity. How would a woman survive alone without a husband to stand beside her? And how would she raise a child by herself? As Amina grew in Nia's womb, the weight of hope and loneliness pressed heavily on her heart. Nia promised herself that she would be strong, that she would raise Amina with the love and protection that Kwame would have wanted for their child. But nothing could have prepared her for the secret that would need to be guarded so carefully. When Amina was born, Nia's joy was also mixed with fear. From the first moment she held Amina in her arms, Nia knew that she would have to protect her daughter from a world that would never understand her. As the years passed, Amina became the pride, of the village. Her beauty was legendary, her dark eyes shimmering with curiosity and wisdom, and her long, thick hair flowed like strands of silk. When she smiled, it was as though the sun broke through the clouds, brightening everything in its path. The village, boys, once timid in her presence, now followed her with admiring glances. The girls, too, envied her, wishing they could be as beautiful as Amina. Yet despite the attention, Amina never knew she was different. To her, she was simply like every other girl in Alembe. She ran through the village with her friends, playing games and enjoying the simple joys of childhood. She helped Nia fetch water, gather firewood, and listened eagerly to the old women as they told stories by the fireside. But Nia was always there, watching, protective in ways Amina didn't understand. From an early age, Nia taught Amina rules that seemed strange to the young girl. Amina, don't undress in front of others. Always be careful when you go to the river, and when you go to the bathroom, make sure no one can see you, Nia would say, her voice filled with a quiet tension. Why, Mama? Amina would ask, her face full of innocent curiosity. That's just the way things are, Nia would reply quickly, hiding the deep fear she carried within her heart. It's important, Amina. Amina accepted her mother's instructions without question. After all, she had never seen anyone else's body up close. She thought everyone had something to hide, and that this was just how the world worked. When she watched the other girls go to secluded places to bathe or relieve themselves, she assumed they, too, were keeping secrets. So she laughed and played with the other children, always ensuring she stayed covered, just as her mother had taught. But as Amina grew older, small things began to bother her. She overheard the other girls whispering and giggling about the changes happening in their bodies. They talked about their first menstruations and the ways their bodies were transforming into those of women. One day, when Amina quietly asked her mother about these changes, Nia's face grew tense. It's normal, my child, Nia replied quickly, brushing off the conversation. Just remember to always be private. Amina felt confused, but she trusted her mother. She saw how the other girls took care to hide their bodies, and she thought that confirmed her own differences were no stranger than anyone else's. Life remained sweet for Amina. She was surrounded by people who adored her, and she felt her mother's love deeply. By the time Amina turned 18, her beauty had blossomed even further. Her radiant skin, her thick, long hair like woven silk, and her graceful demeanor made her the envy of every girl in Alembe. The boys who had once admired her from a distance were now men, and they were drawn to Amina like moths to a flame. Suitors arrived from neighboring villages and beyond, bringing gifts of yams, cloth, and even goats, hoping to win Amina's hand in marriage. Her beauty had become legendary, and every mother in Alembe whispered to her sons that marrying Amina would bring honor to their family. But Amina, unaware of the truth about her body, found the attention confusing. While other girls her age seemed excited by the idea of marriage, Amina felt an unease she couldn't explain. She smiled politely at the suitors, but deep down, something always held her back. Nia, watching from the sidelines, grew more anxious with each passing day. She had known this moment would come, but that didn't make it any easier. Amina's beauty had become a burden, a magnet for attention that Nia feared would one day reveal the truth. One day, a new suitor arrived. His name was Oluwaseun, a wealthy trader from a distant village. Unlike the other suitors, he didn't try to impress Amina with gifts or flattery. Instead, he spent time talking to her, learning about her life, her interests, and her dreams. Nia's heart began to race. Her laugh and Uche's kindness touched her heart in ways she hadn't expected. For the first time, Amina felt something stir within her, something warm, something that made her long to spend more time with him. Slowly, without even realizing it, she began to fall in love. From a distance, Nia noticed the change in her daughter. Amina's face lit up whenever Uche was near, her eyes sparkling with a light they hadn't before. Though Nia felt a glimmer of happiness seeing her daughter smile, a deep pit of fear grew heavier in her stomach. She could only hope Uche would accept Amina for who she truly was, for to Nia, nothing in the world was more precious or perfect than her beloved daughter. Uche, too, began to feel something deeper than admiration for Amina. He saw beyond her beauty. He noticed her gentle spirit, her intelligence, and the kindness that radiated from her. After months of visiting, laughing, and learning about her world, Uche knew he wanted to spend the rest of his life with her. So one evening, under the soft glow of the setting sun, Uche asked for Amina's hand in marriage. Amina's heart raced. She had never imagined herself married. She had never thought about what it meant to be someone's wife, to share a life with another person. But when she looked into Uche's eyes, filled with love and sincerity, she found herself saying yes. The news spread quickly through Alembe. The beautiful Amina was finally getting married, and to a wealthy, handsome trader no less. The village buzzed with excitement as preparations for the wedding began immediately. Uche's family arrived, bearing more gifts than anyone had ever seen. Yams, goats, fabrics, and even golden trinkets. It was clear that this would be a wedding to remember, the talk of the village for many years. But as the wedding day drew near, Nia's fear grew heavier, pressing down on her heart like a burden she could no longer carry. She wanted to be happy for her daughter, but every time she thought about the wedding night, her heart clenched with dread. She had kept the secret for so long, and now it felt like the world was closing in on her. She prayed every night, praying to the gods to protect Amina, to somehow keep the truth hidden. But deep down, Nia knew that once Amina was married, she could no longer shield her daughter from the world. Soon, Uche would know. The day of Amina's wedding was one the village would remember for years to come. From dawn, the air was filled with music, laughter, and the vibrant colors of celebration. Women danced in bright wrappers, their feet kicking up dust as they moved to the rhythm of the drums. Men gathered in small groups, discussing how lucky Uche was to marry the most beautiful girl in the village. Amina sat quietly in her room, surrounded by women who adorned her in the finest wrappers and gold jewelry Uche had gifted her. Her hair was braided into an elaborate style, with beads woven into the thick black strands. She should have felt happy. After all, this was her wedding day. But deep inside, there was a flutter of nervousness she couldn't ignore. Nia, watching her daughter from the corner of the room, tried to hide the anxiety that gripped her heart. She forced a smile whenever Amina looked her way, but inside she was filled with dread. The wedding had come too fast. The day she had feared for years had arrived, and no amount of prayer could change what was about to happen. The village gathered at the central square for the ceremony, and it was as grand as anyone had expected. Uche stood tall and proud, dressed in his best agbada, his face beaming with happiness. Amina, graceful and radiant, walked down to meet him. The whole village erupted in cheers as the ceremony began. The elders blessed the couple, prayers were said, and vows exchanged. By the time the sun dipped low in the sky, Amina and Uche were officially husband and wife. The feast that followed was filled with joy, laughter, music, and dancing. The village square was alive with celebration as people ate, drank, and praised the beautiful union between Amina and Uche. But even amidst all the joy, Nia could not shake the heaviness in her heart. She smiled when people spoke to her, but the worry never left her mind. As the night grew older, the time came for Amina and Uche to retire to their matrimonial room. The guests slowly began to leave, and the village grew quiet. Uche, his face filled with love, held Amina's hand and led her to the small room they would share as husband and wife. Amina, still nervous, smiled softly as she followed him. She had heard stories about what happens between a husband and wife on their wedding night, but her mother had never explained the details. Nia had kept her in the dark about many things, and now, as Amina entered the room with Uche, a strange feeling of confusion crept into her heart. The room was dimly lit with soft mats on the floor and a small oil lamp casting flickering shadows on the walls. Uche sat beside Amina, his eyes filled with tenderness as he gently touched her cheek. He smiled at the woman he had fallen in love with. Amina smiled back, but her heart was racing. She didn't know what to expect, but she trusted Uche. She trusted that everything would be fine, just as her mother had always assured her. As Uche began to undress her, Amina felt her hands tremble slightly. She reminded herself of her mother's words, always stay private. But this was her husband now, the man she had promised to share her life with. There was no need to hide anything from him, she thought. But as Uche's hands moved to remove the final piece of cloth, he suddenly froze. His fingers, which had been so gentle, now stopped as if they had touched something wrong. His face, once soft with love, became tight with confusion. Slowly, he moved back, staring at Amina's body, with wide, disbelieving eyes. What is this?" he whispered, his voice shaking. Confused by his reaction, Amina looked down at herself. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice trembling. She didn't understand why he was acting this way. Uche stumbled backward, his face pale. His eyes, once filled with love, were now clouded with shock and disbelief. You are not a woman," he stammered, his words barely making it past his lips. "How can this be? How did I—" Amina's heart pounded in her chest, fear flooding her mind. She didn't understand. "But I am," she cried, her voice breaking. "I am a woman." Tears filled her eyes as Uche stepped back from her, his hands shaking. He couldn't speak, couldn't think. He only stared at her, horrified by what he had discovered. In that moment, Amina realized for the first time that her body was different. The secret her mother had kept from her for so long was now exposed. The weight of it crashed down on her like a storm. She had lived her entire life believing she was just like every other girl. But now, in the eyes of the man she loved, she saw the truth. She was different, and the world she had known would never be the same. Uche, unable to handle what he had seen, turned and rushed out of the room, leaving Amina alone and devastated. The silence of the night enveloped her as she sat there trembling, her tears falling quietly onto the floor. By dawn, the village of Alembe was buzzing with whispers. News of what had happened in the bridal chamber spread faster than wildfire. People gathered in small groups, murmuring in hushed tones. "Have you heard? Uche left Amina in the night," they said. "They say she is not truly a woman." Another added, eyes wide with shock. Some blamed the gods, others spoke of curses, while a few whispered that Amina was a strange creation sent to test the village. Whatever the explanation, one thing was clear. The secret Nia had kept for so long was now exposed, and nothing would ever be the same. Inside her mother's hut, Amina sat curled in the corner, her eyes swollen from crying through the night. She could still feel the weight of Uche's shocked gaze on her, the disbelief and horror in his voice as he uncovered her secret. It played over and over in her mind, tearing her heart apart with each memory. Nia sat beside her, her own face stained with tears. The pain of seeing her daughter broken was almost too much to bear. She had always known this day might come, but she had hoped, prayed that somehow Amina would be spared from this suffering. Now it was too late. "Amina, my daughter," Nia began softly, her voice heavy with guilt. "I should have told you. I should have told you the truth from the beginning." Amina looked up, her eyes filled with confusion and hurt. "What truth, Mama? What is wrong with me? Why did Uche look at me like I was something terrible?" Nia's heart shattered at the sight of her daughter's pain. She took a deep breath and began to tell the story she had kept hidden for 18 long years. "When you were born," Nia said quietly, "you were different from other children. You had the body of both a boy and a girl. The midwife and I decided to keep it a secret." Amina's eyes filled with fresh tears. "But why? Mama, why didn't you tell me? Why did you make me think I was just like everyone else?" Nia wept openly now, her voice shaking. "I thought I was protecting you, my child. I thought if the world didn't know, you could live a normal life. I wanted to spare you from their judgment, their cruelty. But now I see that I only hurt you." Amina felt her chest tighten with emotions she didn't know how to handle. Anger, sadness, confusion. They swirled inside her, too much to bear. She had trusted her mother, trusted that everything she had been told was true. But now, her entire world felt like a lie. As the two women sat in their shared grief, the sound of footsteps approaching the hut broke the silence. Nia quickly wiped her tears. The village elders had arrived. They entered the hut quietly, their faces solemn. Chief Osei, the oldest and most respected of the elders, stepped forward and looked down at Amina. His expression was unreadable. Behind him stood several other elders, their eyes heavy with judgment. "Nia," Chief Osei began in his deep voice, "the village has heard what happened last night. There is much confusion and fear. We need to understand the truth." Nia stood slowly, her body trembling. She had known this moment was coming, had prepared herself for it many times in her mind, but now that it was here, the weight of it felt unbearable. Amina, still sitting on the floor, looked up at the elders. She could see the judgment in their eyes, the way they looked at her as if she was something strange, something they couldn't understand. Chief Osei turned his gaze to Amina. "My child, is it true what the people are saying? Were you born with the body of both a man and a woman?" Amina's throat felt tight. She didn't know how to answer. She hadn't fully understood the truth until last night, and now the whole village was asking for answers she didn't have. Nia stepped forward, shielding her daughter with her body. "It's true," she said quietly, her voice filled with sorrow. "Amina was born with both male and female parts, but I raised her as a girl to protect her." The elders exchanged glances, their expressions grave. One of the younger elders, Noah, frowned deeply. "This is a serious matter," he said. "Our traditions do not speak of such things. How are we to understand this? Is it a curse or a test from the gods?" The room grew tense, the weight of the moment pressing down on everyone. Chief Osei, however, remained silent, his eyes fixed on Amina. After what felt like an eternity, he finally spoke. "The gods make no mistakes," he said slowly. "Perhaps Amina's birth is not something to be feared, but something we must learn to accept." His words hung in the air, but the other elders remained uncertain. The village had never faced something like this before, and fear often made people seek easy answers. But Chief Osei's wisdom carried weight, and he turned to Nia with a soft gaze. "We will not judge the child for what she cannot control," he said. "But there will be whispers, and the people will talk. How Amina lives from this day on is for her to decide." Nia bowed her head in gratitude, though her heart was still heavy. The elders left the hut in silence, leaving mother and daughter alone once more. Amina, though grateful for the chief's words, still felt lost. She had lived her whole life believing she was one thing, and now everything was different. The village would never look at her the same way again. The life she had known, the dream she had for her future, all of it had crumbled in a single night. Her heart ached as she thought of Uche, the man she had come to love. He had left her without a word, and now she was alone, with nothing but the weight of her secret exposed for all to see. She turned to her mother, her voice small and broken. "What do I do now, Mama?" Nia, her own tears flowing again, wrapped her arms around her daughter. "We will find a way, my child. The world may not understand, but you are still my Amina. We will walk this road together." When Nia opened the door, the old woman greeted her warmly. Her eyes, though aged, held a gentle light. She asked to speak with Amina, and after a moment of hesitation, Nia invited her inside. Amina, sitting quietly in the corner, looked up as Mama Kem entered. The old woman's presence was calm and soothing, and for the first time in days, Amina felt something other than despair. Mama Kem sat beside Amina, gently taking her hand. Her wrinkled fingers were warm and soft. "My child," she began, her voice low and full of wisdom. "I have heard what happened. I have come not to judge you, but to help you understand." Amina's eyes filled with tears. "How can you help me? I don't even understand myself. I don't know who I am anymore." Mama Kem smiled gently. "You are still you, Amina. You are still the same person you were before this secret was revealed. What has changed is not you, but the way the world sees you." Amina shook her head, her tears falling freely now. "But I am not like everyone else. I don't even know what I am. Am I a man? Am I a woman? I don't understand." The old woman sighed softly, her eyes full of compassion. "You are both, my dear, and you are neither. You are something unique, something the gods created with purpose. The world may not understand, but that does not mean the gods made a mistake." Amina looked at her, confused. "But why did they make me this way? Why would they give me this body if I'm only going to be rejected by everyone?" Mama Kem's grip on her hand tightened. "The gods do not always reveal their reasons, but they do not make mistakes. You were born this way for a reason, Amina. Your journey may be harder than others, but that does not make it less important." She paused, letting her words sink in before continuing. "The problem is not with your body. The problem is with the world and its fear of what it cannot understand. You are not a curse. You are not a mistake. You are simply different." Amina wiped her tears, her heart aching. "But the village, Uche, they all think I'm something to be feared." Mama Kem nodded slowly. "Fear is powerful, my child, but it does not define you. You must learn to accept yourself first, before you worry about the judgment of others. Once you understand your own worth, the whispers of the village will no longer matter." Amina sat quietly, absorbing the elder's words. Could it be true? Could she really learn to accept herself when everything she had known was falling apart? Mama Kem leaned in closer, her voice soft but firm. "The road ahead will not be easy, Amina. You will face many challenges, but you are strong, and you are not alone. Your mother loves you, and there are others in this world who will see you for who you are, not for what they fear." The elder rose to leave, but before she did, she placed a small carved wooden figure into Amina's hand. It was a figure of a person, but unlike the usual carvings of men or women, this one had features of both. It was neither male nor female, it was both. "This is you," Mama Kem said, "a creation of the gods meant to walk your own path. Keep this close and remember, your worth does not come from the body you were born with, but from the heart you carry within you." As Mama Kem left, Amina sat in silence, turning the carved figure over in her hands. Her heart felt lighter, but the pain was still there. The journey to acceptance, as Mama Kem had said, would not be easy. But for the first time since the wedding night, Amina felt a glimmer of hope. Nia came to sit beside her daughter, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You are not alone, Amina," she whispered. "We will face this together." For the first time in days, Amina smiled through her tears. The path ahead was still unclear, but she knew now that she was not walking it alone. Though the village still whispered behind her back, Amina now walked through Alembe with her head held high. The weight of their stares no longer pressed on her shoulders as it once did. She had come to terms with her body, and the secret that had once haunted her was no longer a burden she carried in shame. Instead, It had become a part of her story, one she had embraced with open arms. The journey had not been easy. There were still days when the pain of rejection stung, when the echoes of hurtful words whispered through her mind. But with Mama Kem's wisdom and the unwavering love of her mother, Amina had found something more valuable than the approval of others, her own self-worth. She no longer defined herself by the narrow standards of the village. Amina had learned that her identity was hers to shape, and that no one else had the right to tell her what she could or could not be. Though she was born different, it did not make her any less of a person. She was still the same Amina, beautiful, kind and strong. She spent more time in the quiet of nature now, where the trees stood tall and the wind whispered truths the village could never understand. Often, she found herself walking to a hidden clearing deep in the bush, a place she had discovered as a child. Here, under the shade of ancient trees, she could think, reflect, and simply be. It was in this quiet sanctuary that Amina often found her peace, away from the world that still clung to its whispers. But recently, she had not been alone in this space. One person knew of this secret place, her childhood friend, Oba. Oba had grown up next door to Amina, their lives intertwined by the closeness of their families. They had played together as children, running through the fields, chasing goats, and swimming in the stream. He had always been kind to her, even when they grew older, and the distance between boys and girls seemed to widen. When the village turned its back on Amina after the wedding, Oba had not joined in their cruel whispers. Instead, he sought her out. At first, Amina had been hesitant to let him near. After Uche, she wasn't sure if she could trust anyone again, especially a man. But Oba was different. He had known her since they were children, long before the world's expectations had tried to define them both. One afternoon, as Amina sat quietly in the clearing, her mind wandering over the events of the past few months, she heard footsteps behind her. She didn't need to turn around to know who it was. Amina, Oba called softly, his voice always gentle when he spoke her name. She looked over her shoulder and smiled as he approached. His presence had become a welcome comfort in these uncertain times. "You come here too often," Amina teased, though her smile revealed her pleasure in seeing him. "What if I wanted to be alone?" Oba laughed, sitting down beside her on the soft grass. "Then you would have told me by now," he said, with a familiarity that warmed her heart. "Besides, you know this place belongs to both of us." Amina chuckled, shaking her head. "So you say." They sat together in comfortable silence, listening to the sounds of the forest around them. For a long time, neither spoke. It was something Amina had come to appreciate about Oba. He never rushed her to talk, never pushed her to open up before she was ready. He understood her quietness, her need for space, and in that understanding, she had found safety. After a while, Amina turned. To him, her gaze soft but searching. "Why do you keep coming here, Oba? You know the villagers call me a man. You know what happened, or are you looking for a man to keep you company?" Oba's eyes met hers, and in them she saw not pity, but something deeper. Something she hadn't seen in Uche or anyone else. "Nonsense. I have never seen any man as beautiful as you are. I come here because I see you, Amina," he said simply. "Not what the village says, not what people think. I see you." Amina felt a warmth spread through her chest, a quiet comfort that soothed the last lingering doubts in her heart. Oba's acceptance of her, of all that she was, felt genuine, without the weight of judgment or fear. "You know everything about me now," Amina whispered, "and yet you're still here." Oba smiled, his hand brushing lightly against hers. "Of course I'm still here. I've always known you, Amina. Nothing has changed. If anything, I understand you more now than ever before." His words settled over her like a gentle breeze. And for the first time, Amina allowed herself to believe in the possibility of something new. It wasn't the kind of love the village spoke of. It wasn't the grand, perfect story she had once dreamed of with Uche. But it was real. It was rooted in friendship, in understanding, and in the quiet acceptance of all that she was. As they sat together, the sunlight filtering through the leaves, Amina felt the last of her fears begin to melt away. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time she didn't feel the need to have all the answers. She was no longer defined by the expectations of others. She had found her own path, and with Oba by her side, it felt like a new beginning. Though the whispers in the village might never completely fade, Amina had learned that they didn't matter. What mattered was the peace she had found within herself, and the quiet but steady love that was growing between her and Oba. As they sat in the clearing, the world felt wide open, full of possibilities. At that moment, Amina knew that whatever came next, she was ready. It wasn't her fault that she was born different from everyone else, and through it all, she had learned to accept her uniqueness.